Hey up, and welcome to the Temple of Bleh, episode R. That's R for Roger, for those who aren't familiar with my northern dulcet tones. So this episode is a conversation with the legendary photography Svengali, Bob Gruen. So Bob Gruen has an illustrious career spanning 50 years, taking pictures of rock stars, events, album covers, anything and everything to do with the music business of the last 50 years. Bob's most likely taken some kind of picture of it. Now, in pertaining to the content of our conversation, he was also the photographer for The Great Cat, Roadrunner artist from 1987 through to 1991-ish. So we talk a lot about The Great Cat, but the Bob's also got a book out which came out about a month ago called Right Place, Right Time, The Life of a Rock and Roll Photographer, in which he kind of, as I say in this interview, he kind of collects his thoughts and provides context to a lot of the pictures of his of spanning those 50 years. It is a good book. I'm not messing around. It's not a coffee table book. It's a proper reader. But yeah, check it out. It's really good. And this conversation was pretty interesting, man. He's so articulate and he's got an incredibly vivid memory. And it's really helped me understand a little bit more about The Great Cat. So without further ado, let's crack on with it. 1, 2, fuck shit up.
Where are you?
I'm in north of England. I'm in just outside of York. York, if you will.
Uh-huh.
Where are you?
Upstate in the Catskill Mountains, New York.
Right. Nice.
About 120 miles from the city.
Sounds like
near Hunter Mountain Ski Center.
Oh, nice and nice retreat, I guess then.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice up here, and I don't feel I'm missing anything because there's nothing going on. We go in the city once a week or so I have to sign pictures to send to the galleries. Luckily.
Right. Okay. Cool. So I don't want to take up all of your day, but I'll give you some context as to who I am and what I'm doing. So I'm basically pulling together a it's kind of like a docuseries, a kind of an academic pull together of all things Roadrunner records. And in doing that, I came across The Great Cat, and I looked a lot into The Great Cat and found that she's kind of, at the minute, and maybe even at the time when she was about, she's in somewhat obscurity. And when I spoke to Steve Ricardo, who was her A&R manager, he mentioned your name, and that rung a bell with me. And I was like, what? How did this whole engagement come about? So I reached out to Carol, and obviously you seem to remember her. But I did scan the book. I thought I'll to see if she got a mention.
Oh no, I don't think she's in the book, right?
I don't think she is. But I will talk a little bit about the book, because when I got it, the first thing I noticed was it's heavy, man.
Yes, it's really nicely made. It's a good heavy book because they used a decent paper, so the pictures weren't really too bad. But it's not a photo book. But there are 280 pictures in it, so it's got 400 pages. And I had a good editor. He never said no to me.
It's cool because it's not a coffee table book, and it's not a biography. Book. It's kind of like it sits in the middle. It's like you sort of, it's like you took a second to turn around and look at like the last 50 years and go, ooh, you know what? Maybe I should organize this and provide some context. And I think it reads like that, and it retains my attention as a result of that, and I think it's really good for that and the quality of it as well. It's a good.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm getting some good response from it.
So let's just jump straight into it then, mate. So The Great Cat, it's such an enigmatic thing to understand that a man of your profile was her photographer for a time, if that is the correct way to qualify the relationship.
Yeah. No, we had a close working relationship for a couple of years. I did a few of her album covers, I think 2 at least. And I really kind of got along with her. I'm attracted to strange personalities. I find them really interesting and funny and fun. The Great Cat was unique. And I don't really know the details of her history, but I know my connection with her.
Sure, yeah.
And it started on a very busy day when I spent an afternoon taking pictures of what's his name? Steve Winwood.
Okay.
And it was a period when he, in the 80s, I guess, late 80s, whenever it was, he was no longer wanted to be Stevie Winwood. He was going to be Steven Winwood. And, and it was kind of uptight on this video shoot, and
Right.
which is usually a good place, but that was the beginning of when digital was getting good quality. And so video shoots were usually good because there was a lot of light and people had makeup and they were ready to be photographed. In this case, there wasn't a lot of light. It was kind of dim. And there was another photographer who was an attractive woman who got his attention much more than I did. So I had a very frustrating kind of afternoon. And I out of the whole afternoon, a couple of hours of being there, I had like literally 45 seconds when he was actually looking at me and doing photos for me. So I came home from that kind of stressed because that evening, Yoko Ono, who is one of my main clients and good friends, was playing at the Beacon Theater in New York. She'd been doing a series of tours. We'd been in Europe. And this was like the big New York show, and it was that night.
Okay.
And I come home from that, and I got to switch my cameras and get up to the Beacon, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and there's this voice yelling at me, like yelling to the point where you hold the phone away, and like a foot away from your ear. Like, what the fuck? Who is this? She's screaming like, Cream Magazine told me to call you up. You're a photographer. I'm like, yeah, I'm a photographer. What do you know about heavy metal? I'm like, I don't know. Out of the blue, I'm like, I took pictures of Alice Cooper and Kiss. I remember I told her, what have you done lately? I said, whoa, okay. I said, well, I did Stevie Winwood this afternoon. I'm doing Yoko Ono tonight. What do you want? And she said, well, my name's Great Cat. I want something really cat-like, really obnoxious. I said, obnoxious? I said, our cat used to eat raw meat. You want something like that? She said, yeah, great. I was like, oh, okay. Let's see how this goes. And then the day she came, I don't think I had met her actually, but I knew we wanted to do something with a cat eating raw meat.
Right.
And I took it a little further because I live in a West Village, which now is all gentrified, but back then, 30 years ago, it was still very much the meat market, which means at 4 o'clock in the morning, these giant trucks came in with sides of beef. Butchers would chop them all up, and then by noon they were gone. But at 11 o'clock or 12, there was these big garbage cans out front that literally had bones, like, cow leg bones that were like this big, like prehistoric kind of bones. So I went up there and I just kind of nabbed a few. I remember the guy yelling at me, and I was running down the street carrying these 2 giant bones. And I went to the grocery store, got some liver, some raw liver, because that's what our cat used to eat. She came over, we talked about, she loved the idea, she loved the bones, which was probably, really contagious with God knows what, like, but that's why they don't let you just take them away, and I think I had an old rug that was falling apart, like a throw rug, like it was a kind of a sheepskin.
Right. Okay.
And I really just picked it up and pulled, and it came in half. And we kind of taped that or glue, pinned that to her bra. So she had this like caveman look, cave girl. So it was pretty heavy duty. And so we took a bunch of pictures of her like that, eating the raw meat. And it's a great picture. I think it's the cover of the album, right?
Yeah.
And she liked that so much. So that's kind of started the relationship because it worked out so well. And then we did a couple more photo sessions. She would bring a band and we'd take some pictures, and then the drummer would quit. And we'd bring another band and the drummer would quit. And because what I know about Kat is that she was going to Juilliard, and she was a, prodigy, virtuoso violin player.
Yep.
But super fast. She's a very hyper person. And, the Flight of the Bumblebees kind of super fast violin. And I think it was in the early 80s, she saw MTV. I think it was Judas Priest. But there was a band that she saw on MTV that changed her life. In a 3-minute video, her life was changed forever. And she was, totally became a speed metal guitar player instead of violinist. And she was intense. So her fans, she actually started getting fans. And then the fans were called Slaves.
Yep.
I think the first album was Worship Me or Die.
Correct. Yep.
And she would sit there in the photo session actually screaming, die, die. That's how we got these pictures. Die. And I had an assistant at the time, and she made the assistant stay in the dark room. It was just me and Kat. She didn't want anybody around watching her. Which is kind of, it's interesting, like people who are often, very loud in public, but in private, they don't want people to see them doing it.
Sure.
I remember she made Linda stay in the dark room, and I thought it was fun. It was heavier than I thought. I like the album cover; it's so intense.
Yeah.
I gave a CD to my son, who was about 8 at the time. I think, no, probably about 10, and he brought it to school. And I hadn't even looked at it other than the pictures. I don't listen to that kind of music really. And he got in trouble because one of the songs has a lyric about kill your parents.
Yep.
I didn't know that. And so I had to apologize profusely,
Absolutely, your memory is absolutely impeccable. I did not expect that level of detail from 34 years.
Oh, no, she was fun. And the thing was, we got along for some reason. I understood who she was, and that she was no different from a lot of loud, obnoxious guys.
Yeah.
But the people didn't accept that from a small, pretty girl.
There's this
she was louder than most of the big guys.
Yeah, there's this wonderful moment because she's relatively obscure. There's not a lot recorded about her, but there's Christ, what's it called? The Martin Downey Jr. show, which took place.
Yeah, that's what it was. Martin Downey. I keep forgetting the name. I always mix it up with this other horrible TV show. I went there with her.
Oh, you were there on that day?
I did a couple of things with Kat to give her moral support, because I was somebody who understood her and didn't, accepted her for who she was. Do
you remember what happened on that day at the show?
Yeah, he kicked her off the show because she took the cigarette out of his mouth. I think that's the one, right, in New Jersey.
I think it was. I don't know if she picks it. It's on YouTube. I'll look it up later and verify it with you. But there's just a bit where I think that the topic was heavy metal, and the bassist for Twisted Sister was on the show, and they're just egging him on and things like that. And then the Great Cat comes on like a podium by the audience, and everyone's shouting.
No, that might have been different from the one.
Okay.
Elizabeth. Yes. Remember the name of the obnoxious TV show I went with Kat? Was it Mort Downey? No. It was the other guy with an S, right? I forget the other guy, but similar, like a very obnoxious host, kind of dragging you out to controversy. But I went with Kat, and I remember we took a bus from the Port Authority because there's a bus. It was Morton Downey?
I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to have a look at it while I'm speaking to you.
I don't remember the podium because I remember her pulling a cigarette out of his mouth, and he got so pissed off. But the thing was,
it's so. I remember she's there shouting at him, and she's just saying, "Look, you're intimidated because I'm a woman." And I just thought that's really well into what you were saying earlier about,
Yeah. Well, it was like that, but I remember we took a bus from Port Authority. It's just not too far, about 5 miles away into New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And in Port Authority, going past the newsstand, she stopped and she bought a handful of candy, like those Twizzlers that are just, kind of plastic food with pure sugar. Yeah. Something else with sugar, like all of this like heavy sugar candy, and ate that on the bus. And when she got there, she had this sugar rush and was ready to fucking go nuts on the guy. I mean, not that she wakes up with a pretty intense personality, but then after all that sugar, I just saw her eating all this sugar. I thought, like, whoa, where is this going? And then, she was like really on the guy, like more aggressive than he was. And he's not used to that, especially from a woman being that aggressive. Not many people were in the 80s or even now. I mean, not like the Cat is aggressive, There was another time that was really, anyway, she kept getting drummers and I kept taking new pictures. At one point, I suggested to her that she handcuff, put handcuffs on the drummer to chains, like so as to be dramatic, but chain the guy to the drum set. I said, at least that way he'll be there for the whole show, because she was so abusive and so fast that the drummers would quit. They couldn't keep up with it. So I don't think that idea actually happened, but that was the kind of things I was interacting with her, because I thought what she did was unique. And so then the president of the whole company, the one that owns Roadrunner,
Case Vessels,
the guy from Europe.
Yep, Case Vessels, yeah.
Yeah. The head president of the guy came to see Kat because they actually liked what she was doing, but not the way she was doing it. So she played a set. She brought me along, kind of moral support, and to help explain to the guy, which was perfect because I did. And she played a set. It was good, and he said, you know, your music is fantastic, but we have to deal with the press, and you have to kind of get along with them a little better. Can't you be a little nice? And she kind of looked at me like, tell him, you know. And I turned and said, Kat does what she does really well, but she doesn't do nice.
Yeah.
I still remember telling the guy, and he was looking at me like, what? I said, she doesn't do nice. You know, I said, you know, and
she's never compromised.
No.
In that way, and that's part of it's part of the brand.
And then there was she had a lot of fans in Northern Europe, like where heavy metal is pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the magazines had but one of the magazines had a contest where you actually get flown to New York to meet the great Kat. So some guy wins. He comes to New York, and there's this like innocent kind of a bit subservient, but I remember him kind of being a thin, sort of taller than Kat. Everybody's taller than Kat. Yeah. But you know, kind of thin, nice kid. And I took pictures of her like walking on him with her high heels, things like that, you know, totally abusing him, which we thought was funny at the time. I don't know if you get away with that nowadays. No. But she was great because she was really a virtuoso. Then she did, what was it, Beethoven on speed.
Correct, yeah.
You know, to kind of put the classical roots that she grew up with together with the speed metal that she was doing.
And that's what I think is the main thing that should have been her appeal, because there was virtuosos out there. There was like your Yngwie Malmsteens and people like that, but no one who was faithful to the actual classical form. And that's what Kat was all about bridging that gap.
Right.
So it's a shame she's not got the recognition that she kind of deserved, because there's a lot of guitar players out there who could do without the posturing of certain neoclassical players and could do with just that gap being bridged. Here's Beethoven. Here's an arrangement for guitar that kind of has more energy. Here's Brandenburg concertos in 25 minutes as opposed to 75 or however long they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it that appealed you to the Kat in general? Was it just the obnoxious? Was it just the attitude, or was the idea of a classical bridge between, a bridge between classical and metal?
Oh, her fans, I have no idea. I have no idea. To me, it was just all amusing. You know, that there was this pretty little girl who was just so loud and out there, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I admire strong women.
Sure.
So I'm friends with Yoko Ono, you know. Like,
I find quite interesting how she reached out to you personally and it wasn't through the label. I thought it would have been like a...
No, she called me up. I remember that phone call. I was like, whoa. And then I always had to hold the phone away. She talks loud.
Yeah. Do you remember the signing party at Bebop's? When she initially got signed? Yeah, Bebop's 20th of January 1987 is where she signed with Roadrunner. And there's a few pictures.
She might have been already signed by the time I met her. What year? 87? I actually had a big, I love Bebop. It was one of my neighborhood places. They had English beer. They had Bass Ale on tap, you know. That's what I remember about it.
The Bass Ale factory is now
derelict. I had a big exhibit there, but what was my exhibit? I think my exhibit was like 84. Something like that, 85.
Because I was going to say that if it was you at that party, which it may or may not have been, you will have had the honor of taking one of the only pictures of Case Vessels, who was, as you said, the president of the label. He's not a very oft photographed person. Oh, really? One of the only ones is one at that party. But
I don't remember the party.
No.
I remember meeting him at a rehearsal place where I told him that she doesn't do nice.
So how long did your relationship with her last? And you said a couple of years, but it seemed to stretch into the second album as well, which was 1990. Yeah. So was the engagement clearly just like Kat would ring you up on any given day and go, come down, there's this thing happening. I want you to take some pictures.
No, I didn't go to too many things. I don't think I might have seen a show. I went to her apartment when the Slave winner was there. That's where I took pictures of him.
Slave.
And I think I met her sister at that point. She's got a very conservative, nice person sister.
Right.
It's like nothing like her. But other than that, it was just, she came to my studio a few times. I don't know if I ever saw her in a club or a performance, except for the showcase that she did.
Yeah. Yeah. Has she been in touch recently? Do you occasionally?
No, I haven't heard from her. I haven't heard from her in years. Last I heard, it was like beginning of internet time. Oh, that's what it was. We had a great conversation. She was telling me about doing kind of like a Zoom call, but more of texting. You know, I was kind of cynical in the early days of the computers, and she was saying, "I talked to all these people." I said, "You mean you typed to all these people?" And she was, "Yeah, I'm talking to them." I said, "You mean you're typing to them?" You know? And I wouldn't let her get, you know, I said, "You're typing, you're not talking," you know? And so I remember having that conversation, but that she had fans around the world that she was getting in touch with, and she was pretty savvy about the internet. And I think that's where she ended up pretty much. You know, last I heard, she was doing a lot of interneting, you know, connecting and so on.
The album after Beethoven on Speed wasn't really an album, it was an EP. I think it was something like Digital Beethoven Massacre or something. I can't remember the name of it. But that the shtick with that was it was one of the first CD-ROM releases. So it was one where you'd put the CD in and it was like more of a digital experience. But when I've seen videos of her talking about that, and she's way ahead of the game. It's like 1994, and she's talking about Bill Gates, she's talking about Microsoft as an entity and things like that. And I think that's carried through to today quite well, because a lot of all the content now is Spotify. She doesn't release as many albums. She's more like, here's a single, here's like 5 minutes of this new thing, and yeah, that seems to be a shtick now. But
no, I haven't been in touch with her for a year. I think she's out in Long Island, Huntington. Back where she grew up. Yeah.
Well, that's the only questions I had about the Great Cat. Just wanted to see if you had any reflections or memories that you wanted to share.
Yeah, for me it was fun, you know, because she was just so different and so intense. I like passionate people. I like people, you know, with a lot of feeling, and she certainly was. You know, it was like, it's easier for me. Like some people just stand there and they go, "What should I look like?" You know, she knew what she wanted to look like. And right off the bat with the raw meat, we hit it off. And in fact, it's a very funny. I had some fake blood that I had left over from some session years ago, and we put some of that on her. And I even took a glove. There's like a rubber glove that's like a white surgical glove, and I filled it with chopped meat. So it looked dead, but it actually had meat, you know, like a dead gray hand. That was it's in the bones. Like if you look at the bones in her lap, there's a glove, there's a hand, it's severed hand
filled with dead meat.
So I got kind of creative, you know. And then I had that picture in my kitchen for many years. I don't know if that says something about me, but I just like the intensity of it. You know, she was out there.
She's a real, for lack of a better term, she's a real motherfucker. You know, and I think certainly.
Yeah, well, there's guys like that, you know, and they just take it for granted, like, oh yeah, he's an obnoxious guy. But you don't find obnoxious girls. You know, it's just, especially loud ones like that. Like,
yeah, I mean, we live in a post Liam Gallagher world as well, so it's like people are quite happy to say, look, you can be an absolute twat if you want, as long as you're delivering the goods. And Kat does deliver the goods. She's always been, look, let's cross over these two worlds and let's deliver some good music and get people into classical. And she hasn't stopped. It's relentless. So it shocks me that she hasn't got the profile that she deserves, really. In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe because the record company couldn't accept it either, you know.
They were.
If I got to explain it to the president, then what's he doing signing her in the first place? Well, actually, he didn't. Roadrunner did, right?
Yeah, it was Steve Ricardo. In fact, he got the first tape when he worked at, somewhere out east. It wasn't In Effect. That was a different one. Anyway, he was. First, he got the tape. Then she flew out from New York to LA to meet him. And then it was like, I can't actually sign you, but I really like it. He didn't send like a rejection card. He just went, I like it. Let's table everything for now. I'll come back around to it when I can. And then that's how she got onto Roadrunner. But I think Case understood the angle. That's his thing. He's not a metalhead. He's an opera guy. But if he doesn't feel the vibe, he won't sign him. But I guess this is the thing. When he'll effectively sign them blind. So he'll have heard the Great Cat, heard the shtick and gone, yeah, fine. but obviously it takes a few years before he realizes, she's not really getting on with people.
Yeah, yeah. No, most people couldn't take it. She she knew I understood her, so she wasn't really abusive to me. But if people didn't get it, she was quick to attack.
Yeah.
And people weren't used to that, especially, like I say, from a woman.
Yeah. Tom Von Doom, the bassist, sends his regards, by the way.
Which one? Oh, from her band?
Yeah, the bassist. Very tall guy.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't remember him, but who was it? Who was it? It's the girl from the gallery, right? Who's married to one of them? Yeah. Yeah, there's a very upscale, like one of the best photo galleries in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking to this woman and getting to know her, on a photo level and everything. And then one day we were talking, and it turned out that her husband was like a bass player or a drummer for the Cat. Like, really? Because you would never expect it. Like, she's totally normal looking. And I was like, really, your husband worked with Cat? How long? Because really, those drummers came and went.
Yeah. All right, I've got one more question for you, and I ask everyone this: have you ever seen a ghost?
A ghost?
A ghost.
Well, not in a spooky white sense, no.
What other sense might you have seen one?
I've never seen a ghost, or maybe you'd call a presence of something spooky.
Right, just a general vibe.
A friend of mine used to have a house a friend of mine used to have an old house nearby that had been a rooming house, and there was some rooms upstairs, and when you walked by one of those rooms, your hair would stand on end. And it just didn't matter what you were thinking or how much you ignored it, and you knew it was an empty room and there was nothing there. There was this freaky, spooky thing that everybody who went past that room felt it.
Anything special about that room? Or was it just...
We don't know. It was like, there's rumors that somebody might have died or whatever.
Sure.
But it was an old house. Nobody really, had an actual history. But I do remember that totally spooky thing. And other than that, no, I'm not, I live in this world, Actually, my ex-wife used to see ghosts and things, and spirits and things like that. And we were in a big old house that her father had rented for the summer, a kind of a mansion. And I was up on the top floor. And every morning, her mom and her would talk. Did you see the little girl with the candle coming down the stairs and shit like that? Mm-hmm. And I had a very ugly picture of Jimi Hendrix. It's a really raunchy picture. I just actually found it on eBay and bought the poster again. And I had that poster right inside the door, because there's kind of room where you walk in and you see a wall, and then you turn left and the room is there. Yeah. Well, right on that wall, I had this Jimi Hendrix poster. No ghosts ever bothered me. No girls with candles. Nobody came in there. That Jimi Hendrix poster kept me safe.
Awesome.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna let you go, but thanks very much, and congrats on the book. And you're incredibly.
Thanks for getting it.
Yeah, man, you're incredibly articulate, and your memory is impeccable. And I'm glad you've taken the time to record it on paper for us all to enjoy. What I'll do is
a lot of stories like the Cat was really interesting, but I had a good editor, and I could only put in stories that actually went somewhere where it was more than a paragraph or two.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things I left out.
Yeah, sure.
I wrote the book. All I'm thinking about is everything I left out.
The thing that's quite poignant about it as well is because now we live. One thing that this virus has sort of shown us is we can decentralize quite effectively. Locations don't matter in terms of working, and like if you wanted to photograph a great band, you wouldn't have to go to New York City anymore. You could probably find them anywhere.
I have friends who are doing virtual photo sessions.
Yeah.
Like they're having their friend put a camera up in front of themselves, and then they take the picture when they think the person looks good. And you're not even there. There's one friend is doing beautiful work like that. A few people. And
your book is very sort of it's kind of an epitaph to the era where geography mattered. Anarchy in the UK, New York City, the Tokyo bits is like the centers of these scenes, and it's like, well, the scenes are kind of the scenes won't ever die, but there will be. I think there's going to be a mass decentralization, and people realize it's not all happening in one place anymore.
Well, my wife pointed out that the pandemic of 1918 and 19 was followed by what is known as the Roaring '20s. So that's a positive thought to keep in mind.
Yeah, get some extra film in your camera and start.
Yeah. So there'll be things coming up, someday.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, man. I'll send you the link to the Martin Downey Jr. show I was talking about, because I found
That'd be
it.
funny to see.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you were there. I found that
Yeah.
fascinating. I thought I found like a proper gem, like an isolated incident, but you're all over it, man. All over it.
Yeah. No, I did it a couple of years. She was good. She was fun.
Awesome, dude. Enjoy the rest of your day.